The morning sun painted the valley golden as Lee Hyun-woo stepped out of his house at exactly 6 o'clock, same as he'd done for 37 years. He walked past Kim So-young's farm where her chickens ran free, then stopped to chat with Park Min-ho, who was checking his rice fields. This was their life. Predictable, peaceful, perfect. "The water smells different today," Park Min-ho mentioned, frowning at his irrigation channel. Lee Hyun-woo bent down to look. The water did seem a bit cloudy, but they shrugged it off. Maybe it was just dust from the road construction. 3 months ago, a big company had announced they would start mining in the mountains. The officials came to their village wearing expensive suits and bright smiles. They promised jobs, development, and progress. Most importantly, they swore their sacred water supply would stay untouched. The villagers had lived here for 5 generations. Their great-grandfathers had built these farms with their bare hands. Grandmother, Im Soo-jin, who was 85 and sharp as a tack, had warned everyone. "Big promises from big companies usually mean big troubles," she had said. But Mayor Choi Dong-min brushed off her concerns. He was already counting the tax money the mining company would bring. The changes started small. Trucks rumbled through their quiet streets, leaving dust clouds behind. Workers in hard hats appeared everywhere. The noise of heavy machinery echoed through the mountains day and night. But the company kept assuring them everything was fine. Then, the fish started dying. Han Yura, the village nurse, found her son Min-jun crying by the river. Dozens of dead fish floated belly up in the water. The next day, there were hundreds. By the end of the week, the entire river reeked of death. Kim So-young noticed her chickens getting sick. They stopped laying eggs and moved sluggishly around the yard. Her neighbor's cow, which had given milk for 6 years without problem, suddenly fell ill. The veterinarian, Dr. Ryu Ki-han, couldn't explain what was happening. Within 2 months, the nightmare became real. Park Min-ho's rice turned black. The cornfields withered despite plenty of rain. The fruit trees that had bloomed beautifully for decades now shed their leaves in July. The entire valley's agricultural backbone was crumbling. Kang Min-jun, a high school teacher who had returned home after studying in Seoul, started asking questions. He visited the mining site and saw massive trucks dumping chemicals into the ground. When he tried to take photos, security guards chased him away. Attorney Yoon Jae-sung, working for the mining company, sent him a warning letter about trespassing. The village well that had provided crystal-clear water for generations turned black. People started getting sick. Strange rashes, stomach problems, headaches that wouldn't go away. Song Mira's baby developed breathing troubles. Elderly folks like grandfather Shin Dong-jin couldn't stop coughing. Dr. Ryu Ki-han ran tests on everything. The water, soil, even the air. The results were terrifying. Chemical contamination levels were off the charts. The mining company had poisoned their entire ecosystem. When he tried to publish his findings, he received anonymous threats. The villagers held meetings in grandmother Im Soo-jin's courtyard, away from prying ears. They decided to approach Mayor Choi Dong-min together. Surely their own leader would help them fight this injustice. But Mayor Choi had changed. His old bicycle was replaced by a shiny new car. His modest home now had expensive furniture. When the villagers presented their evidence, he dismissed them. "These are just temporary side effects," he claimed. "Modern progress requires some sacrifice." They tried going to the county officials, then to the provincial government. Each office sent them to another department. Paperwork disappeared mysteriously. Phone calls went unanswered. Government Inspector Bae Kyung-ho visited once, spent 30 minutes with company executives, then declared everything was in order. The mining company offered compensation, tiny amounts that wouldn't cover a month's medical bills. When people refused, the company's lawyers found ways to make their lives difficult. Tax officials suddenly appeared at farms. Building inspectors condemned houses that had stood for decades. Desperation filled the valley like poisonous fog. Families who had never known hunger now couldn't afford medicine. Children missed school because they were too sick to attend. The older folks, like grandmother Im Soo-jin, watched their life's work turn to ash. One evening, as Han Yura treated another sick child, she broke down crying. We've tried everything, she told Kang Min-jun. The law won't help us. The government won't help us. What do we do now? That night, under a starless sky polluted by industrial smoke, the villagers made a fateful decision. If their own officials wouldn't protect them, they would reach out beyond their borders. They would tell their story to the world. Surely somewhere someone would hear their cries for help. They had no idea what they were about to unleash. Teacher. Kang Min-jun stared at his computer screen at 2 a.m., his eyes burning from exhaustion. For the past month, he'd been sending emails to anyone who might listen. Environmental groups, human rights organizations, journalists, even celebrities on social media. Most messages vanished into the digital void without even a simple reply. Another rejection, he sighed, showing the latest email to Nurse Han Yura. This makes 47 organizations that said they can't help us. Han Yura rubbed her forehead tiredly. She'd spent another sleepless night treating children with mysterious rashes. What did this one say? Too small scale for our current projects, Kang Min-jun read aloud. They're focused on international issues. He laughed bitterly. Apparently 3,000 poisoned people isn't international enough. But they couldn't give up. Every day brought new horrors. Yesterday, Park Min-ho's youngest daughter developed breathing problems. Kim So-young found her chickens dead in their coop. The river now ran completely black and fish hadn't been seen for weeks. Lee Na-young, a college student visiting her grandmother, suggested trying social media. Old people in suits ignore emails, she said. But videos and photos get shared everywhere. So they started documenting everything. Im Soo-jin, the retired school principal, used her old camera to photograph the dead river. Dr. Ryu Ki-han took pictures of skin rashes in sick animals. Song Mi-ra filmed her baby's labored breathing. Lee Na-young created social media accounts and started posting. She wrote simple, heartfelt captions. This is my home. This is what happened to our water. Please help us. The first breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A food blogger named Choi Soo-bin was visiting the neighboring city and saw one of their posts. She had 50,000 followers who loved her content about traditional Korean villages. When she shared their story, it exploded. Suddenly, their phones wouldn't stop ringing. News channels wanted interviews. Environmental groups that had ignored their emails now called constantly. The story spread like wildfire across the internet. Famous actor Oh Jin-ho reshared their video with a simple message. This is unacceptable. These people need our help. Within hours, donations started flowing in. But attention brought new problems. Attorney Yoon Jae-sung, the mining company's lawyer, arrived with police officer Nam Tae-jin. They accused Kang Min-jun of spreading false information and threatened legal action. The company's security chief, Park Jin-ho, started following villagers with his men. You people are damaging our reputation, Park Jin-ho warned grandmother, Im Soo-jin. Business has consequences, remember that. The threats only made them more determined. Han Yura started appearing on news programs, calmly explaining the medical evidence. Dr. Ryu Ki-han published his findings online, despite receiving anonymous death threats. International attention began growing. A Japanese environmental group offered to send experts. European journalists asked for interviews. An American documentary team wanted to film their story. But the mining company fought back harder. Mayor Choi Dong-min held press conferences denying everything. These people are attention seekers, he claimed. They're trying to destroy legitimate business for personal gain. Government Inspector Bae Kyung-ho released a report claiming the water was within acceptable limits. When reporters asked to see the raw data, he refused. The company's social media team flooded the internet with counter-stories. They shared photos of their state-of-the-art facilities and testimonials from satisfied employees. They accused the villagers of lying for money. Kang Min-jun felt the weight of responsibility crushing him. Maybe we should stop, he told Han Yura one evening. People are getting threatening phone calls. Park Min-ho's daughter was followed home from school. Look at this. Han Yura showed him her phone. A message from a Malaysian village facing similar problems. Your courage gives us hope, don't stop fighting. Another message came from a Kenyan farmer. We see you, the world is watching. A teenager from Brazil wrote, your story made my whole class cry. We're organizing fundraisers. The support kept growing. Musicians wrote songs about their struggle. Artists created paintings of their polluted river. Students organized protests in front of Korean embassies worldwide. But the company escalated too. Security cameras appeared everywhere. Villagers noticed unmarked vans following them. Some received job offers from neighboring cities, obviously attempts to remove voices of opposition. Then came the hackers. The villagers' social media accounts were attacked. Their website was crashed repeatedly. Fake accounts started spreading lies about them. They're trying to silence us, Lee Na-young observed, working to restore their hacked accounts. But look at this. She showed them thousands of messages of support. A group of international lawyers offered free legal help. Environmental scientists volunteered to conduct independent studies. Journalists wanted to investigate the company's corruption. The world was listening now. But as their cries for help grew louder, the response from those who came to help would soon take a dangerous turn. What started as a simple plea for justice was about to become something none of them could control. The villagers had reached out to humanity, hoping for salvation. They never imagined that some humans would answer their call with weapons instead of compassion. The seeds of what would become a devastating conflict were already being planted, watered by anger, desperation, and the simple human desire to help, even if that help came with terrible consequences. The first group of outsiders arrived on a Tuesday morning in 3 beat-up vans. Kim Min-soo, a university student from Seoul with paint-stained fingers and fierce eyes, stepped out carrying a megaphone and a rolled-up banner. We're here to fight alongside you, he announced to the confused villagers gathering around. Kang Min-jun approached cautiously. Thank you for coming, but we were hoping for legal help or media attention. Legal help? Kim Min-soo laughed. The system failed you already. It's time for direct action. Within hours, they'd set up camp in the village playground. Colorful, tents sprung up like mushrooms. Students spray-painted slogans on walls while elderly villagers watched nervously. Songmira whispered to her neighbor, I thought they'd be more professional. By Thursday, the crowd had tripled. A bus arrived carrying 50 environmental activists led by Lim Hyo-jin, a woman with dyed green hair who claimed to have liberated animals from factory farms. They immediately started planning a blockade of the mining operation. You don't understand, Han Yura explained to them. We just want the poisoning to stop. We don't want violence. Violence? Lim Hyo-jin's eyes flashed. Look around you, this company is committing environmental terrorism. Sometimes fighting fire requires fire. The real shock came Friday evening. Military veteran Oh Sung-hwan arrived with 30 men in camouflage uniforms. They drove armored pickup trucks and carried equipment bags that clinked suspiciously. Oh, Sung-hwan approached Kang Min-jun with a firm handshake. Heard you folks needed protection, he said. My boys and I served 3 tours overseas. We know how to handle corporate bullies. Protection from what? Dr. Ryu Ki-han asked nervously. From everything, Oh Sung-hwan replied grimly. Trust me, I've seen how these situations escalate. The villagers felt increasingly uncomfortable. Their simple cry for help had attracted people with their own agendas. During a heated discussion at grandmother Im Soo-jin's house, the divisions became clear. We wanted scientists and lawyers, Park Min-ho said quietly. Not whatever this is becoming. These people came to help us, Kang Min-jun reminded him, but his voice lacked conviction. Lee Na-young, who'd been coordinating much of the social media campaign, looked worried. My posts have been shared by some extreme groups. I never meant for that to happen. The different factions barely tolerated each other. Kim Min-soo's students wanted to organize massive protests. Lim Hyo-jin's environmentalists planned eco-sabotage operations. Oh Sung-hwan's veterans patrolled the village perimeter like it was a military zone. Local shop owner Shin Dong-jin complained to Mayor Choi Dong-min. "There are strangers with guns in our village. Do something." But Mayor Choi had problems of his own. The mining company was furious about the negative publicity. Their security chief, Park Jin-ho, doubled the number of guards around the facility. Private security contractors began arriving, in black SUVs with tinted windows. "We have a right to protect our property," Park Jin-ho declared during a tense meeting with village leaders. "These outsiders are threatening our operations." The situation spiraled quickly. Kim Min-soo's students attempted to block mining trucks on Monday morning. Security guards used pepper spray to disperse them. By afternoon, Lim Hyo-jin's group had chained themselves to the mining equipment. Oh Sung-hwan's veterans established checkpoints on roads leading to the village. "Standard security protocol," he explained when questioned. But their presence made everyone nervous, including the villagers they claimed to protect. Attorney Yoon Jae-sung arrived with a court injunction. "These protesters are trespassing on private property," he announced. "We have the right to remove them by force if necessary." The mining company hired more security contractors, tough-looking men with military backgrounds who weren't bound by police regulations. They set up their own camp just outside the village. Tensions rose daily. Fights broke out between different protest groups over strategies. The environmentalists thought the veterans were too aggressive. The veterans believed the students were naive idealists. Everyone argued about who was really helping and who was making things worse. Han Yura found herself treating injuries from scuffles between protesters and security forces. "This isn't what we wanted," she told Kang Min-jun after bandaging a war. Students' pepper spray burns. The media attention intensified, but now journalists focused more on the conflict than the environmental disaster. News reports showed dramatic footage of protests instead of sick children. Park Jin-ho recruited more contractors. "We're surrounded by hostile forces," he told his employer. "We need to be prepared for anything." Oh Sung-hwan responded by calling for more veteran volunteers. "They're escalating," he warned villagers. "We need to match their strength." The village that had once been peaceful now resembled an armed camp. Barricades appeared overnight. Both sides patrolled constantly. Fear replaced the hope that had initially brought people together. Young mother Song Mira held her baby close as armed men walked past her house. "I want everyone to leave," she whispered to her husband. "The protesters, the guards, everyone. I just want our home back." But it was too late for that. Too many people had too much invested in the conflict now. The simple story of environmental poisoning had become something bigger, angrier, and far more dangerous. The stage was set for disaster. All it would take was one spark in the powder keg that their quiet village had become. The first shot came at 5:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Nobody remembered who fired it. Kim So-young was feeding her remaining chickens when she heard what sounded like a firecracker. Then came shouting, running footsteps, and the unmistakable crack of gunfire. She grabbed her children and ran inside, heart pounding. Within minutes, the village transformed into a battlefield. Oh Sung-hwan's veterans had been patrolling the northern checkpoint when they spotted figures moving near the mining equipment. "Identify yourselves," Sergeant Ko Jin-woo called out. The response was a thrown rock that shattered his windshield. What happened next remained disputed. The veterans claimed they fired warning shots into the air. The security contractors insisted they were attacked first. But by sunrise, Kim Jae-min, a mining supervisor heading to his morning shift, lay dead in the road. The killing changed everything. Attorney Yoon Jae-sung arrived with Police Chief Kwon Tae-ho and 50 officers in riot gear. "This has become an armed insurrection," he declared. "Everyone not authorized to be here will be arrested." But who was authorized anymore? The lines had blurred beyond recognition. Student protester Lee Na-young huddled with her friends as tear gas drifted through the village. "We came here to help," she sobbed. "We never wanted anyone to die." The mining company's response was swift and brutal. Park Jin-ho brought in military contractors, serious men with combat experience who treated every villager as a potential terrorist. They established roadblocks, cutting off the village from the outside world. Dr. Ryu Kihan tried to reach a patient having a heart attack but was stopped at a checkpoint. Nobody moves without authorization, a contractor told him while an old man suffered. By noon, both sides were digging in. Kim Min-soo and his students barricaded themselves in the school building. Lim Hyojin's environmentalists fortified the community center. Oh Sung-hwan's veterans took positions on rooftops and in abandoned buildings. The mining company turned their facility into a fortress, topped with razor wire and floodlights. Kang Min-jun, the teacher who had started this nightmare with his innocent emails, found himself trapped in his own home with his family. "This isn't what we asked for," he told his wife as bullets whistled overhead. The second death came that afternoon. Protester Seo Hwangyu was trying to deliver medical supplies when a sniper's bullet found him. Whether it came from security forces or vigilante protesters, nobody could say. Both sides blamed the other. Federal agent Bae Kyung-ho arrived with military vehicles and tear gas launchers. "This is now a federal matter," he announced over loudspeakers. "Surrender immediately or face the consequences." But surrender wasn't an option for anyone anymore. Too much blood had been spilled. Too many people had too much to lose. Fighting intensified at dusk. Someone, investigators would never determine who, threw a Molotov cocktail at the mining company's security trailer. The explosion lit up the night sky. In retaliation, contractors launched tear gas into the village center, sending civilians choking and scrambling for cover. Grandmother Im Soo-jin, 85 years old and barely able to walk, dragged herself behind an overturned car as bullets shattered windows around her. "Why?" she whispered. "We just wanted clean water." The battle raged for 3 days and nights. Villagers who had simply wanted their water unpoisoned found themselves caught between armed groups claiming to defend them and government forces treating them as enemies. Children couldn't go to school. Elderly people couldn't receive medicine. The whole village became a prison. Han Yura, the nurse, converted her clinic into a field hospital. She treated bullet wounds and burns alongside the original environmental poisoning symptoms. "I don't care which side you're on," she told both injured protesters and wounded security guards. "I help everyone who bleeds." Food supplies dwindled. Power lines were cut. Water, the original source of their problems, became scarce as the Yao battle-damaged infrastructure. Park Min-ho watched flames consume his rice barn. "We lost everything twice," he told his neighbors. "First to the poison, now to the war." On the fourth day, tragedy struck again. A stray bullet pierced the wall of Song Mira's house, killing her baby daughter. The child had survived the chemical poisoning that killed so many animals and plants, only to die in a fight supposedly waged to save her. Song Mira emerged from her house carrying her daughter's body, walking through the war zone with tears streaming down her face. Both sides stopped firing as she passed, shame momentarily overcoming rage. That moment of silence didn't last. Federal agent Bae Kyung-ho ordered a final assault. "This ends now," he radioed his units. Armored vehicles rolled through the village, streets followed by soldiers in gas masks. The defenders, protesters, and villagers alike were overwhelmed. Oh Sung-hwan fell defending the school. Lim Hyojin was arrested while trying to destroy evidence of their plans. Kim Min-soo was pulled from a burning building, half dead from smoke inhalation. By the time the shooting stopped, 17 people were dead. Dozens more were injured. The village was in ruins. The mining facility strangely remained mostly intact, but the company announced they were shutting down operations anyway. "Too dangerous to continue," Park Jin-ho explained to reporters. "The security situation is untenable." As federal agents loaded the last prisoners into vans, Mayor Choi Dong-min surveyed the destruction. "We never wanted this," he said quietly. "We just wanted to prosper." The war that nobody wanted had consumed everything. The help they desperately sought had become their destruction. And still, the poisoned water ran black through the ruins of their home. 3 weeks after the shooting, stopped Kang Min-jun stood in what used to be his classroom. Bullet holes dotted the walls like dark stars. Broken glass crunched under his feet. His desk was overturned, covered in debris and dried blood. The silence was worse than the gunfire had been. "Ready to go, teacher?" asked Officer Park Dong-hwan, one of the few local cops who had survived the chaos. He was helping evacuate the last residents. "Just one more minute," Kang Min-jun replied, touching a photograph still hanging on the wall. His students had given it to him last Christmas, all smiling faces from before their world collapsed. The aftermath was a patchwork of broken lives and shattered dreams. Of the original 3,000 villagers, only 800 remained. Most had fled during the fighting, leaving everything behind. They now lived in temporary shelters in neighboring towns, sharing small rooms with multiple families. Children slept on floors, and adults worked odd jobs to buy food. Han Yu-ra ran a small clinic from a converted shipping container. She still treated the original poisoning symptoms, rashes, breathing problems, digestive issues, but now she also dealt with trauma. "The children don't sleep well," she told a visiting doctor. "They wake up screaming about guns and fire." The mining company left as quietly as they had arrived. Lee Hun-woo, the CEO, held one final press conference. "While we maintain our operations were completely legal, the security situation made continued work impossible," he said, surrounded by lawyers. "We deeply regret any misunderstandings that occurred." They left behind tons of contaminated soil, poisoned water, and destroyed equipment. The government promised to clean it up when the situation stabilized. That was 6 months ago. The toxic waste remained untouched. Dr. Ryuki Han published a final report on the environmental damage. The contamination had spread beyond the original site. The entire watershed was affected. It would take decades and millions of dollars to restore. Money nobody seemed willing to provide. The legal aftermath was cruel and confusing. 17 people had died, including 6 villagers who'd never wanted any part of the conflict. The survivors faced a maze of courts, investigations, and blame. Attorney Yoon Jae-sung, still representing the mining company, sued the protesters for property damage. The families of dead security contractors sued the village for harboring terrorists. Federal prosecutors charged dozens of protesters with armed rebellion. Meanwhile, not a single mining company executive or government official faced charges. "Justice is expensive," Mayor Choi Dong-min said bitterly during his own trial for inciting violence. He received 5 years in prison. The company leaders received legal fees as tax deductions. The community that remained was fractured beyond repair. Some villagers blamed Kang Min-jun for starting everything. "You brought them here," Park Min-ho's widow accused him at a village meeting. "My husband would be alive if you'd stayed quiet." Others defended him. "We were dying slowly from the poison," argued grandmother Im Soo-jin, now blind from chemical exposure. "At least he tried to save us." The protesters who had come to help scattered like leaves in the wind. Kim Min-soo, the student leader, spent 2 years in prison. He emerged broken and defeated. "I thought we were heroes," he told a journalist. "We were just another kind of disaster." Oh Sung-hwan's surviving veterans formed a support group for combat trauma. "We came to protect innocent people," one explained. "Instead, we started a war." Lim Hyo-jin, the environmental activist, left the country. "I can't face what we helped create," she wrote in her final social media post. The government offered compensation packages, but they came with conditions. "Sign here and you get 50,000 won," explained government official Choi Sang-hyun, sliding contracts across the table. "But you cannot speak to media, file lawsuits, or discuss the events with anyone." Most families signed. They had no choice. Medical bills were piling up and children needed food. Han Yu-ra refused. "They want to bury the truth with our silence," she said. "My daughter died in this chaos. I won't pretend it didn't happen for money." For her defiance, she faced constant harassment. Her clinic lost funding. Officials inspected it repeatedly, finding violations where none existed. Anonymous callers threatened her at night. Years passed. The ruins became covered with weeds. Developers eventually bought the abandoned village at rock-bottom prices. They planned luxury condos for wealthy city residents. Serene mountain retreats with natural spring water, the advertisements promised. The poisoned spring water. Song Mi-ra, whose baby had died in her arms, returned for the last time before demolition began. She placed flowers where her house had stood, then walked to the cemetery where her daughter lay buried. "I should have taken you and run that first day," she whispered. "Instead, I believed people would help us." A news crew interviewed her, one of the few media stories about the anniversary. The reporter asked if she thought the struggle had been worth it. Song Mi-ra looked directly into the camera. "We asked the world for help because we were desperate. The world sent us armies, fanatics, and politicians instead of doctors and engineers. We learned that sometimes when you're drowning, the people who dive in to save you might push you deeper underwater." She paused, tears running down her cheeks. "My baby is dead. Our home is gone. The water is still poisoned. Tell me, what did we save?" The reporter didn't have an answer. Today, a highway rest stop occupies the land where the village once stood. Travelers buy coffee and use clean bathrooms, unknowing they're parked above poisoned soil. Sometimes old residents meet there accidentally. They nod to each other, buy their drinks, and leave quickly. There's too much pain and recognition. The story became a cautionary tale told in whispers, about what happens when desperation meets good intentions, when help becomes harm, and when humanity's worst impulses disguise themselves as heroism. Kang Min-jun, now teaching in a distant city, tells his new students about critical thinking and peaceful protest. He never mentions his past. Late at night when he can't sleep, he still wonders, if they hadn't reached out, would they have died quietly from poison instead of loudly from bullets? Which fate was kinder? The question haunts him, because the answer keeps changing, and none of the options ever seem right.